Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub, or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game.
Hey guys, Coach Dan here. Happy leg day. Today we've got legs on the cards. We are currently week 4 of a fat loss phase. We've got 6 weeks remaining, I believe, if I have crunched my numbers correctly. And yeah, things are going pretty well. So some things that have changed this week is a reduction in calories, because I'm kind of not seeing a downward trend in body weight, and an increase in steps to kind of see if we can't get that fired back up again. So, but all in all, feel pretty well. We got hunger, we got a bit of lethargy, but nothing that is going to kill us. And again, you just remember what the outcome is at the end of this process is to be leaner and, hold on to as much muscle mass as we can. And, once you do it a couple of times, or you go through this kind of phase a couple of times, it becomes an easier process because you know what the outcome is, and it's pretty rewarding to see all your hard work come to fruition. So, lower body today. Now, we've got a pretty standard lower body day, nothing crazy. We're starting with the big hack squats, which I changed to a higher rep range last week exclusively, where I had been doing a heavy set and a couple moderate or lighter sets. Our glute dominant exercise most recently has been a high foot leg press, or a glute bias leg press, but I'm noticing doing both the hack squat and going into that, I'm getting a little bit of knee discomfort in my right knee. So I'm going to take that movement out, and I'm 99% sure today I'm going to do some barbell hip thrust. So the old barbell hip thrust might not be, the reason I've chosen the hip thrust, we've got a hip thrust machine here. I could do like a lunge or something like that. I like the idea of not loading my spine, and keeping fatigue as low as possible. Now, glutes work pretty hard on things like squats and all that kind of stuff, and some of my other movements. But yeah, that is an exercise targeted towards those. So I'll do 2 sets of hip thrust, and I figure it might be fun to kind of build that up as a heavy barbell movement. Normally considered a pretty, female exercise, but if you need some work into the glutes without loading the spine, it can be a good option. I might do it in a moderate or even higher rep range, maybe 10 to 15 or even 20 reps. The thing that I've always found challenging with the hip thrust is the bar being in that kind of area. That's not too comfortable. But other than that, we are business as usual. Seated hamstring curl, just a very conventional seated hamstring curl. Leg extensions with the yoga blocks for the purpose of increasing range of motion. And then, a couple of the finishes. So we're going machine adduction for the adductors. Don't want to neglect the adductors, even though they get some love on the other movements. I get a couple of sets in there just to kind of cap them off. And then, potentially, if things go to plan, that's probably not going to work. And then I was going to do a superset of leg press calf raise into abdominal cable crunch, but I'm now realizing those exercises are probably far enough away and heavily utilized by gym members such that it might not be very good etiquette. And I'm all about gym etiquette. I think there is a place for gym etiquette, even though most people think I'm a prick. Gym etiquette is gym etiquette. All right, that's that. We get in there. Ultimately, I'm feeling good. So we're looking forward to this, but talk to me on rep, 8 of the first hack squat set and ask me if I'm still feeling good, and I'll probably change my answer. All right, let's head out there now. All right, first up we hit the big bad hack squat. So I use the hack squat as a quad dominant exercise. So what that means is my technique is such that I try and make it as quaddy as possible, obviously within reason and not to, harm myself or anything like that. So what that means is my foot placement and all that kind of stuff is such that I'm thinking, all right, I want the quads to be the big worker here, because when I go into other exercises, I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's for glutes, that's for hamstrings. So this one's due to be as quad dominant as possible. I've always found this to be probably, as far as stimulus goes, to feel the most close to the best. Maybe this and leg press feel the best stimulus as far as what you can feel in your quads. So I've always really liked the hack squat. It's pretty brutal, very tiring, very stressful, so you can only do so much of it. So my tips for hack squat: foot placement firstly. Same as when we leg press, if we go real high on the platform, there will be nothing wrong with that. But again, you'll find that you get more hip flexion, less knee flexion. We potentially want some knee flexion to get a good quad stretch and hopefully make a better stimulus. So we go pretty low as you can manage, essentially without your heels peeling off the platform when you kind of come down in the bottom of the squat. So I'll go pretty low, something in between, like lowish on the platform. There's a logo here. I kind of line my toes up to the top of that logo, toes slightly out, pretty narrow. I've always liked quite a narrow stance, but that's, preference suited. So that would be step number one. Set your feet such that they're low, that you don't get any joint pain, and you can still keep your heels on the platform. Then we'll kind of come into the hack squat like such. I've got yoga blocks here. The yoga blocks are to increase the range of motion. Oh, and I also have my weightlifting shoes, which have the elevated heel to allow for more depth as well and more knee flexion ultimately. So we get this big quad stretch. So we push up, control the down phase, so 1 to 2 seconds under control, drive up aggressive. I only really have like a soft lockout usually on here. Small gentle stop or pause at the bottom, and then we rack. So very effective, very challenging, very tiring. So foot placement key, controlling the descent, getting that big stretch through the quad, so making sure we get good knee flexion within region, making sure you have no joint pain, and that's the hack squat. All right, let's build it up, see if we can't best our performance from last week. Come on. You fucking pussy. Alright, next up we are going to go the barbell hip thrust. So this is going to be the glute exercise of choice. So I'm subbing the high foot leg press out for this, just because I'm getting some discomfort in my knee, because when I do that version of a leg press, it gets quite heavy because I'm quite strong in it versus a quad dominant leg press. So hip thrust will take some of that pressure away from the knee, still get a good stimulus in the glutes. And yeah, no lie to the spine, helpful for reducing fatigue. I also think it'll be fun. I've never really built up with this, so I don't know exactly what I'll be capable of. So this is like a spare room or like a bit of a stretching room at this gym. But there's a station here for hip thrust right over here. But the platform on that, the feet slide a little bit. So I've got this box, which is like it's like a pretend tire flipping kind of tire thing for commercial kind of gyms. Nice and heavy, nice and sturdy. So I'll roll the bar over with the pad, of course, because as you start to get stronger at this, it can be terribly uncomfortable. Hips sink down, squeeze butt at the top. So some pointers for the hip thrust If you are finding that you get hamstrings, it potentially means that your feet are going this way too far because you're getting a larger stretch in the hamstrings. If you're feeling quads, potentially too far this way. So you bring your feet a little bit further that way. Wait, let me simplify that. Feet too far that way, hamstrings, feet too far this way, quads, somewhere in between. So we get to the end of the set and you feel your butt on fire. I'm gonna do a moderate rep range. A potential downside to this is there's no weight tree in here, so I might have to go get a couple weight plates, but I don't foresee me being too strong at this. I've seen some people do some really impressive weights on here before, so that's cool, and that might be fun to build it up. So yeah, this is gonna be a glute exercise for at least the near future. All right, let's go get some weights and get into it. All right, seated hamstring curl. So this is my hamstring volume only for this. Those hip thrusts, they went pretty well, and they will use a little bit of hamstring, and they can be more or less hamstringy, but mostly they're glute dominant. So as far as, you know, your hamstring goes during that movement, it's going to contribute to hip extension, but the fact that I have a bent knee means there's going to be less hamstring stretch. But in this position, we get into like a maximal hamstring stretch as far as exercise, as if we're starting off in a sit and reach stretch, and that stretch position that can potentially make it more or less stimulative for that muscle group. So nothing too much to this. I think things to keep in mind when it comes to the hamstring curl is there's a few different variations. Some clamp down on your legs. I would probably prefer that if we had that here, and also that back or that bottom pad on the back of the ankle, not too far up your leg and certainly not off the side, so you're kind of falling off. We want to crank this up as high as possible, such that you're getting a nice hamstring stretch. So again, this as high as possible as your flexibility will allow. Heels to butt, control the way up, heels to butt, stretch, heels to butt. Not too much to it. Other than that, you'll see me at the end of the sets on this do some half reps, because what happens on machines like this and our strength level is that essentially this is really hard when it gets to the bottom, and our strength is such that we can't continue on, but we can still do half reps sometimes. So I'll finish your full range, getting this all the way to the ground, and then when I can't do any more of those, I'll finish off potentially with some halvies. This one's been hard for me to get better, but we keep trying. All right, leg extension to cap off the quad work. So some potential well, that's not a downside, but just some potential limitations with the squatting movements and the leg pressing movements is they don't target a particular muscle in the quad called, well, very well, should I say, called the rectus femoris, which passes both the knee and the hip. So when you do things like squatting and leg pressing and stuff like that, the compound movements, essentially what you get is they are doing, that particular muscle is doing opposing jobs at each joint. So when you go down into a squat, you'll have the rectus femoris potentially stretching out because it's a quad muscle, so it'll be stretching out. But because as you come down into a squat, you flex at the hip as well, then it's shortening at this joint. Lengthening at this joint, shortening at this joint. At the opposite, lengthening at this joint, lengthening at this joint. So essentially, you get this, no, I misdid that, sorry. When you come out of a squat, you'll then be shortening this, but lengthening this, right? So in that kind of situation, it would appear that it doesn't get as much love during those movements, like if you compare leg extension versus, squats and whatnot for rectus femoris growth, leg extension wins out. So having both probably has some merit. It doesn't have to all be in the same workout all the time, blah, 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 but probably over the course of time, movements where we open the hip up like this. So that's another technique cue that I have, where we take this all the way back. So we open the hip up, we flex the knee as far as possible, and we keep that hip open. We don't close it down like in a squat. Maybe having at least, one of these movements around the program over time is worth your while. So again, back rest all the way back. I've got the yoga blocks for increased range. Again, pushing my foot that way, flexing my knee out, potentially for some more stretch, hopefully some more growth. Extend, control the way down, gentle tap, extend. This caps off the quad work for the day. Alright, a bit of machine adduction here coming up next. So when we do things like our squats and some of the other movements, the adductors work, but they don't work in isolation, and maybe they even work enough, but I'm inclined to cap them off with a couple of sets here just to make sure they're becoming the limiting factor, and make sure they are getting work alongside the quads and the muscles of the lower body. Nothing to the machine adduction, and that's why I do it. It's very simple to set up, very simple to use. This particular machine has two functions, both abduction, pulling out, and then adduction, pulling in. We're doing the adduction version today. We crank this out as far as we go, which will mean you'll get a big stretch through the adductors. Leaning back as well will keep that, also add to that stretch. So leaning back the whole time, knees in, open up, stretch as far as your flexibility allows, drive in, gentle tap, drive in, and that's it. So we do a couple of sets here, and then we get things done. We're getting work done today.
He was trying to get something else. He was like, it's like speaking out the way, but yeah, that's what I said. I was like, yeah, magic, right? Very wide.
Okay, next up we have the leg press calf raise. One of my top favorite calf raise exercises. There's not many out there, but the good thing about the leg press calf raise is there's no real stress on the rest of your system. You just get to go there and go to town on the calves, which I like. This particular one, some leg presses have a thing that kind of blocks you under here from going through a good range. This one does not. I think one thing to keep in mind as far as the calf raise goes is to make sure you set this up such that when it's getting challenging and heavy, if your feet are down low on here versus up here for like a leg press or a normal leg press, it can kind of wedge you and shoot you out, and I've had to do that. It's pretty sketchy. So set the backrest up high that it pushes you back this way. We set half the foot on the platform, so at least the ball of your big toe usually. We push up, we stretch down, we raise, we stretch down. Now this is another one where I'll do mostly a higher rep range, 10 to 20 reps. I'll also at the end of sets usually do some partial reps, because often you can't fully lock out, but you can still get a few more partials in, potentially taking us closer to failure, potentially getting more muscle growth, which is the goal. And that's that. Nothing too much to it. Yeah, that's basically it. A couple of those pointers there. Go through a good range, get a good stretch, and that's that. 4 sets here. Abs, we done. All right, we're going to finish off with some ab work. Now, I would normally do a cable abdominal crunch at this stage on this workout, but it's unavailable, so I'm going to go to second favorite exercise that's available at the moment, which is going to be a GHD leg raise. My issue with the GHD leg raise is the weighting. So like eventually you get good at them, and to add weight, far out, it's a nightmare. Like I got these devices somewhere online that essentially, what do? You strap it to your foot, almost like an ankle brace, tie it to a dumbbell, but far out, it's a lot of work to kind of get weighted. And by the end of the workout, it's kind of like, do I really want to continue to do that? And no's the answer sometimes. So that's the issue with this one. I feel like there would be a easier way to weight them, and I feel like I've seen something, but I haven't been able to run it down yet. Anyway, for now we can go body weight, maybe a high-ish rep range. So again, the benefit of doing a abdominal exercise on a curve like this, like you could use an ab mat, we don't have one here, but an ab mat would go on the ground and kind of align with your lumbar spine. If we think of the job of the abs or the rectus femoris, it's kind of to flex the lumbar spine. So if we want to extend the lumbar spine and stretch the abs, this can be a helpful tool to kind of stretch out over it. Now we're doing it in the opposite direction. So where we would normally do a sit-up on this on my other lower body day, so you can check that out as well. Now we're going hips up. So again, rectus abdominis, we have an origin point, which is the bottom of the sternum, and an insertion point, which is the pubic symphysis, or onto your pelvis. So now we're going to go to the top version. We're going to think about tipping our whole pelvis up towards that point. On the other day, we do that crunching version. So we're going that point to that point. Today, we're going this point to this point. So we use this, stretch out the abs. We also think to initiate the movements, I'm pulling the whole pelvis, not just raising the legs. So that is hip flexion. We want spinal flexion. You know, they normally say not spinal flex, but when we want to use that, spinal flexion, but in this direction. So I don't think I'm great at spinal flexion, and that's why this tool is quite helpful. So line up the lumbar curve along this bend, and we kind of flex into that kind of position. So I'm thinking about pulling my whole pelvis this way. And again, the legs are just weights. We're not just raising the legs, we're pulling the whole pelvis up. But yeah, the weighting is a long-term issue with this one. Like, those things are just massive pain in the ass. So I'm inclined to use like abdominal cable crunch or a weighted sit-up. You just need a dumbbell. I'll keep an eye out there, and if anyone has any ideas to weight your legs further, we've got like a weight vest here, but that would slide around and stuff. So anyway, we've got to figure it out over time. All right, let's go. That's a wrap on the workout, guys. A funny as in it was fun. Legs on a cut can tend to get pretty tough because they are heavy and tiring, and yeah, but same goes for the other stuff, is that we don't want to lose muscle. So if we kind of shirk our effort or accept, below par performance, like on the hack squat or whatever else it might be, again, like if your performance is going backwards or not going forward, there is potential that that's muscle lost, because you think about when you do a movement, you actually learn to do it better. So there's a nervous system component. So if let's say you're, let's try and explain this well. Let's say you're getting better at the movement, so your nervous system is getting better, your technique's getting better, but your performance is not getting better or even backsliding, like because you're practicing the movement and these two things are going up, so your performance should be going up theoretically. The reason that your performance is maintaining or going backwards is potentially because there's muscle loss. So let's say at the same time that your nervous system's getting better, your technique's getting better, things like that, you're also losing muscle, and that kind of looks like no progress. I mean, it's not a massive problem, but yeah, you certainly don't want that to be significant. You want to hold on and work really hard to keep your strength, keep your performance, so we keep that muscle. Because muscle is hard to build, or harder to build than fat is to lose, so keep that at all costs. All right, as always, see you tomorrow for a pull workout. If you want to subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Click the little thing up here. If you want to watch another video, click it up here. And as always, it's about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.